Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our assessment webinar to give you an update as to the processes and where we're at so far. First of all, I'd like to say a big well done to all year 11, 12 and 13 students. From the school's perspective, they seem to have managed things extremely well over the last few weeks. Might seem different as a parent, but from the school they have behaved well and they have dealt with the situation very well. So we're very proud of them. And a credit to you as parents as well. The purpose of this evening's session is to go through, first of all, how the centre determined grades are created, then to understand a little bit about the decision-making records, and then to understand the appeals policy. We're in a position now where assessments are finished. The marking is mainly done and the moderating has been done as well. And on Friday, the teachers will be working on creating those CDGs. So Mrs. Allen is here this evening and she'll go through those first 2 points with you. And then Mr. Jones will be here, senior leader with responsibility for exams. We'll go through the appeals policy with you as well. Please feel free to put questions in the chat box. You might want to wait until the end of a session before asking questions, and then we'll answer those either during the evening or at the end if they're relevant for everyone. So without any further ado, I'll hand over to Mrs. Allen.
Thank you, Mrs. Hughes, and good evening, everyone. I'm just going to go through with you now how we are determining those centre determined grades and also then something about the decision-making record. So by now, as Mrs. Hughes said, pretty much all of the assessments are done. Just a few students who perhaps have missed assessments will be catching up perhaps tomorrow morning, but they've all been completed. They will have been marked by teachers. They will have been moderated by teachers in Penglis and in other schools. And so we will now be converting those marks to grades. And on Friday, in our inset day, we will then be using that evidence to determine the grade for a student in each subject. So how do we come about those grades? Well, number one here, each centre determined grade must be an objective decision based on evidence of a candidate's knowledge, understanding, skills and abilities in relation to the subject. It is not a prediction of a student's potential. So it's very, very important that we understand that. Teachers will be basing grades on the evidence, and that evidence will be the assessments that that student has completed. Number two, we have to have a range of evidence when we determine the grades. So we will be looking at the range of assessments and we will be selecting from that range the assessments that best exemplify the student's performance across the specification for that subject. Number three, if a student has an access arrangement when they sit an assessment, or they have special consideration added to an assessment, then we will be making sure that that is applied. So point 4 here is about this principle of best fit. Each grade must be decided on by looking at the evidence in line with the WJC, which is the exam board, grade descriptors, and deciding the best fit for each student. So as well as having our grade outcomes on our assessment, we will also be looking at each assessment and looking at the performance and the attainment of a student on that assessment against written grade descriptors to make sure that we are getting the correct grade, the best fit grade for that student. So we won't just be relying on the grade outcomes of assessments. We will be looking at performance of a student on the assessment and then deciding the best fit using those grade descriptors. The fifth point here is about the weighting. So some parts of a course may have much heavier weighting than others. So, for example, in English, the reading and writing part of it will be much more heavily weighted and carry more marks than something like the oracy. And so we do have to bear that in mind as well when we are awarding a grade. Number 6, when we make these decisions, we must pay due regard to the public service equality duty and ensure the judgment is fair, valid and equitable, free from bias and unintentional bias. We have done a lot of training as staff to make sure that we are not discriminating against certain students and that all our marking and moderation and all the judgments we make are fair and free from bias. So what I'd like to show you now is what this could look like. So this is the decision-making record, if you like, that students will receive for each subject on the 16th of June. Now, this is just a mock-up, an example. So we have mocked up, we've used an example of English language. And this is a GCSE English language. There are 3 pieces of evidence that have been used to determine the grade. So you have Unit 3 Reading and Writing paper from November 2018. You have the Unit 2 Reading and Writing paper, November 2017. Remember that reading and writing carries greater weight than oracy or speaking in English. And then Unit 1, the NEA, is the speaking paper. Next to that, on the right-hand side, for access arrangements and special considerations. In this example, the student has an N, which means that they do not have access arrangements, they do not have special considerations. Finally is the grade outcome on those pieces of assessment. So you have a B and a C. So the member of staff, the teacher, will sit down and look at those assessments. They will look at the B grades, they will look at the C grade, they will look at what the assessment looks like. So they'll take the assessment out of the file, they will look at it, they will compare it to the best fit grades. And the judgment then overall, even though there is a C in the speaking, the best fit grade for this student comes out as a B. So the centre determined grade is the provisional grade. It's a B grade. So the second example here is slightly different. The assessments used are the same. Assessments used are the same. The person has no access arrangements, no special consideration. But on this example, you have a B, a C and a B. And the overall grade, the centre determined grade, is a C. So what will have happened here is that the teacher will have looked at the grades, but looked at the pieces of work against the grade descriptors. And obviously they've had to consider the fact that the reading and writing weighs more heavily than the speaking, the oracy. So looking at those pieces of work against the grade descriptors and bearing in mind the weighting is more heavily weighted to the reading and writing has meant that the judgment is different here. It is a C grade, even though there are 2 Bs and a C on those individual assessments. To clarify that a bit more as well, we need to consider the performance within the grade. So again, the same example, English language, GCSE, 3 pieces of assessment, no access arrangements, no special consideration. Now, in this example, the B1 indicates that the achievement, the attainment on that assessment was a high B, and it was quite close to the A. On the second unit, sorry, there is a B1 again. So that B grade is quite a high B, quite close to the A. The C grade is a high C, quite close to the B. So bearing that in mind, it has come out again as a B grade. So looking at where the student is within a grade, whether they are quite high in the grade and close to the next grade, or quite low in the grade and dropping into possibly the next grade down, will actually be part of the judgment as well. And the same here. This time, the 3 indicates that actually that B grade is a low B, close to the C. On the unit 2, the C grade is a low C and close to the D. And on the speaking, which remember carries less weight, is a B grade, but close to the C. So again, that judgment would be an overall C grade, even though it's BBC. So on the 16th of June, you will have a record like that for each subject, and it will tell you this information. So if we can have a look at this slide here. Decision-making records. When you receive your provisional centre determined grade on June the 16th, you will also receive your decision-making record for each subject, as I've explained. This document will have quite a bit of information. It will have the evidence, just as we've seen in the previous 4 examples, the evidence of the assessments that the centre determined grade has been based on. Whether access arrangements or special consideration has been taken into account. On the examples we've just seen, then they didn't have access arrangements or special consideration. If there are students with that, it will just be a different symbol. It'll probably be a yes. Then you'll have your provisional centre determined grade. Then you'll have something called the rationale. Now, every teacher, when they actually decide on that grade and they've had it checked, they have to write in the basis for that decision. So that will be included in that record. Next, whether the grade was quality assured. Well, all grades will be quality assured within faculties. Senior leadership will also be quality assuring. And finally, we have to actually look at certain statements to state that we have actually followed the correct processes. So that has to be shown on your record as well. So that's what you will see. So this is what it will look like, more or less. There'll be very small variations for subjects like Welsh Bac, which have a little bit more variation, a little bit more information to add to it. So that is what you will get. You'll get one of those for each subject, which will then give you a clear indication of how that judgment has been reached. So all the assessments that have been used, plus the grade outcomes, plus the rationale, plus whether access arrangements, special consideration has been actually applied, and then all those statements at the bottom where we are actually as teachers having to say yes or no to make sure that we have gone through those processes. So finally then, that decision-making record will provide learners with enough information then to understand how the school has reached the decision on their grade, and the information or evidence taken into account when we make that decision. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Allen. We'll go straight on to Mr. Jones to understand about the appeals process. In the meantime, if you do have any questions, pop them into the chat, and then we'll come back then to those at the end. Mr. Jones.
Thank you. I think it would be useful just to look at the overall reason behind the system this year first. If you had children in year 13 or year 11 last August, you'll remember that there were a lot of problems with the issuing of results and the uncertainty of the final results that students were going to get. So the Welsh Government this year were very keen that there was more certainty and that this would reduce anxiety about results, which would be especially important for current year 13 students. So we'll look at the appeals process now, but this is only applying to subjects with WJEC. Now for this school, that is most of them. You'll see at the bottom, we've got a class of Mandarin GCSE. We've got OCR Enterprise and Business in year 11, and we've got BTEC qualifications in year 11 and 13 students. Those qualifications are all with English exam boards, so they have a different system. Results are not released for those subjects and those boards until the result days in August. So everything else we're looking at is the other subjects. So there are 3 stages to the appeals process this year. The most important one will be stage 1, which is the centre review. So when students get their centre determined grades and the decision making record on Wednesday the 16th of June, they need to check those records very carefully. If students have reasons to believe that there is an error in the grade that has been issued, they must put in for a centre review by the 25th of June. So the deadline for that is the 25th of June. As in other years, when appeals go in, we need to understand grades can stay the same, they can go up, or they can go down. Now the centre review is carried out in school. This is because the grades have been calculated in school. So that stage is all carried out within the school. If stage 1 has been completed and a student still believes there are good grounds that an error has been made, they can then move on to stage 2. But you cannot put in a stage 2 appeal unless there has been a stage 1. Now in the middle box you can see there, stage 2 appeals go to the WJEC, that's our exam board, but the key word there is where learners have reason to believe the centre has made an unreasonable judgment. So that will be looking at an unreasonable academic judgment. Those appeals can only go in on or after appeals day. There is a 3rd stage, which is the EPRS, but that will not be changing grades. So for the centre review then, a student has to identify what the error is. There's a form that we'll look at briefly on that. The students must give reasons for what the error is. And again, that needs to be in by the 25th of June. If the form is not returned by the 25th of June, it cannot then be processed. There's an example of the form there. And on the bottom of the left-hand side, it's asking for reasons why you believe an error has been made. Now, occasionally in previous exam seasons, sometimes marks haven't been added up correctly, but this is where the decision-making record is really important. If a student sees that on 4 pieces of work there is a B grade, on 1 there is a C grade, and the overall grade issued is a D, that would be clear reason to believe an error has been made. So again, can I strongly advise that students are in on the 16th to pick up the centre determined grades and the decision making record. So the second bullet point there is important. It's not an opportunity to try to improve grades and think that work is going to be remarked. It is the school is checking that the correct procedures have been made and that there is no obvious error in that process. And again, just be aware that grades can stay the same, go up or go down on any appeal. So those are the sorts of errors that might have been made that learners will need to identify. So for example, they have an access arrangement and that wasn't in place. For example, evidence has been used that wasn't on the original assessment plan. Or when they're looking down the grades, the grade issue isn't supported by the grades on the decision-making record. So those are our important dates there. You can see the 16th of June be in to collect the information. Then the 25th of June is the deadline for centre review stage 1. Remember, if there's no stage 1 appeal, you cannot move on to stage 2. So year 12 and 13 results day on the 10th of August, year 11 results day on the 12th. So how do these reviews be processed? So the form will need to be filled in and they need to be emailed to the exams email that's in the 3rd bullet point. So any information about appeals must come please to exams@penglice.org.uk. The review will then take place in school and the outcome of that will be reported back to students and parents. Once the stage 1 has been completed, you've still got grounds to believe an error has been made, we can move on to stage 2. Now that request can come in before the results day, but it can't be processed to the exam board until the results day. And the stage 2 appeals have to be made through the school. Students and parents cannot make the appeal to the exam boards themselves. Again, that will be done through the exams@penglice.org.uk email. And again, those are the key dates. Priority appeals will be those applying to students in year 13, where university places are at risk. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. So I hope that's relatively clear. This webinar will be up on our website, so you'll have the dates there. We'll also send those out for you in a letter form, and the policy, the appeals policy, will also be on the website so that you can have access to those. So we'll just wait to see if there's any questions coming in. Please feel free to type in questions should you wish to. We'll give it just a few moments just to have a look at those. No questions coming in at the moment. So year 11 and 13, any parents out there, we will be seeing them tomorrow and saying farewell to them tomorrow for the end of their year. I know the heads of year have arranged activities for them for the afternoon, so it'll be nice to see the students there. And then on the 16th, as Mr. Jones said, it is really important that students do come in on the 16th to receive their grades. So that then, if there is a process to be put in place, that can be put in place. So, question: what happens to the provisional grades at the WJC? Can they change? So, is this if an appeal is put in? Yes, the grade can be changed at that point if it shows, if they think that there has been unreasonable judgment made by the centre. So if they think it's been unreasonable judgment, or if it's been procedural, then the grades can change. They can go up, down, or stay the same. Is uniform required on the 16th? So the day that they will take their results? No, they won't be required on that day. We do have Mr. Fisher with us as well, so any questions for Mr. Fisher as head of Year 11? He's joined us this evening. So not for an appeal, just the grades the children are given. So the provisional grades, after the WJC receive our grades, the provisional grades, they will then be looking at them and see if there's any, if they're within a kind of tolerance compared to other years. If they think that there's anything significantly wrong with those grades, they will contact us and they could ask us to relook at the grades. But I would think that that would be minimal. If no appeal is made, will the results remain the same on the 10th of August? They are likely to. As I say, WJC have got a procedure in place, and if things look very unreasonable to them, they would contact us as a centre. But you know, I'm confident that the processes that we have been through, they've been very robust. The evidence is there by the teachers. They are working hard, as I say, to moderate, both internally within the school and externally with other schools as well, to make sure that our grades are right. And looking at those grade descriptors, they are quality assured by subject leaders and faculty leaders. They're quality assured by us as senior leaders as well. So I would hope that they are as accurate as they can be based on the evidence that we have from the students. What is happening on the day that pupils get the provisional results? How are you planning on giving them the results? Mr. Fisher, do you want to answer that for year 11?
Yeah, for year 11. Can you hear me okay, first of all?
Yeah.
Yeah, great. The year 11 plan is to come in the afternoon on the 16th from 1:20 and then go straight to forms. And then the form teachers will spend the afternoon with them. And then at certain times, the forms will be called down to the main hall where they'll be given their provisional results. They'll have an opportunity to look at them, to discuss them with members of the senior leadership team and myself, who will be there in the hall, and also to ring yourselves to let you know what the results are. And then they'll go back to their forms. And we aim to get through the whole process in session 3, so it would be from 1:35 to 3:15, and then pupils will leave at 3:15 then at the end of the day. So you don't need to be in school in the morning. Just from 1:20 the gates will be open for pupils to start arriving.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher. Year 13s will be in the morning. I will ask Ms. Elgar just to send a letter out just confirming how that's going to happen with year 13, and year 12s will be in as well, won't they? So they'll be receiving those in the morning. There is another stage that we have put in on the Thursday and the Friday. So 16th is a Wednesday. On the Thursday and Friday, as senior leaders, we will be available so that if people do want to discuss the results before deciding if they want to do a centre review or not, you can book an appointment online with a member of the senior leadership team, and we'll be able to have a discussion with you as parents and students about those results, should you wish to, before then deciding if you want to ask for a centre review or not, and just to understand the results. Our results in August being emailed or collected from the school, we haven't quite yet decided. We're going to have a look and see what the COVID situation is by then, and then make a decision. Again, we'll let you know, hopefully before the end of the summer term. Good questions coming in. Is there anything else? Okay, nothing coming in at the moment. Okay, so thank you for joining us this evening. I hope that's been helpful for you. As I say, we will put this on the website. You can have access to it later on if you need to. All the documentation and the forms that need to be completed will also be on the website, and they will be in the students' teams, so they can access those as well the forms for the centre review should they be needed. Okay. Well, thank you for your support throughout all of this process. It hasn't been easy for students or for anyone, and certainly not for parents. So thank you for your support, and hopefully our students and your children will be pleased and satisfied with the results when they get them. Okay, thank you and good evening.